This week I wanted to cover it's almost a continuation of last week's biggest mistake episode that executives make, but it's the cure for micromanagement. And just kind of want to walk through some of these things that happen within organizations. So, micromanagement, the characteristics of it are, overly involved in the work of employees, frequent updates, um, detailed reports on things. Uh, you know, I want to be CC'd on all the emails that you send out. And they'll also have things, I've worked with a lot of IT companies and IT or parts of organizations, and, you know, they have some type of change board. How do I prioritize what we're going to work on next? Some of them are called configuration control boards. But, one of the characteristics of micromanagement is, we have to stop work in order to take care of emergencies. And inevitably, one of the things that I constantly see in these change management groups, often led by, there's an executive in the group, is, you know, here's our priority, and then they vote on what would be the most important thing, except if the president says that they have to change something, then everything. And guess what happened? Just about every week, the president said, no, this one that was number 62 is now needs to be number one, and nothing ever got done because they were constantly, oh, we'll start into this one. Oh, nope. We got to move over to this one because it's the priority now. And this is this is indicative of a system that is broken. Uh, in organizations, the constant movement and because of the latest emergency or priority that changes constantly. There's no true north. Everybody's just constantly, okay, what's next? There's a whole series of things associated with that. They'll sit in these configuration control boards for a couple hours, you know, sometimes 2 or 3 times a week. And, I'll have some developers in there and they're like, I could have coded this in like 10 minutes. you know, why are we doing this? So there's, to me, that's a big part of micromanagement is constant, prioritization and, the latest emergency or the president says this. So anyway, that's one of the characteristics. And also, um, you know, there's a lot of in micromanagement measures and monitoring of those measures that they have, and a huge amount of documentation of work processes, because somehow having lots of work processes and rules and things of that sort will make the work better. It doesn't, and we'll get into that a little bit more. But the outcome of it is that you get high turnover, and it's very demotivating to the people on the front line. And, why does this happen? Well, I think most of the time there's this extreme need for control, and for a few others, control and domination. And then you also get people in management that are just inexperienced. Um, you know, they don't know what else to do other than they just came out of that position, and all they can do in their mind, to add value is, watch what everybody does and tell them what to do, and make up rules and make up procedures, and think that they're creating value for both the organization and the employees. Some people say it's self-awareness. I don't really see necessarily that, although there's some element of that in it. It's more, how do people are trying to create value, whether they're executives or middle management or employees, and it just takes away, it sucks the life out of organizations when you're doing that. But I don't necessarily believe people are that self-aware, especially as they get into management. But so what's the cure for this? It's along the same lines of the last week's episode, and that is, take time to learn and understand the broader system that you're in, and especially if you're in management or you're an executive and an aspiring executive, then learning how the whole system works will give you a leg up in the future. And now's your chance to kind of, understand how the group that you're managing contributes value to the rest of the organization. And more importantly, as I talk about every time in probably just about every episode, is, being able to understand what the customer needs out of your organization. So studying it customer in, listening to phone calls, and oftentimes, especially in IT, you're so removed from where the customer is that it's very difficult to create the type of value that you're looking for in an organization. So, doing that together with your team or group or whatever gets you out of that micromanagement piece, and now you're in a learning mode. And being in that learning mode will help you, mitigate that need for, whether it's for control or domination, or you just don't know what else to do. Gives you something to do, and my system walks you through step by step in doing that. But it definitely pulls you out of the minutia of the work that's being done. And you're spending time when you're doing this understanding what's going on, as opposed to ordering people, around on things that you think they should be doing. But you will wind up learning, by studying your organization customer end, you'll learn how value is created. And by value, what is of value to the customer, and how that potentially you can create it within your organizations. And then it becomes like, if you go out and do this and start seeing things, then this is the time to pull your group in and say, hey, you guys, I want you to listen. I want you to see if you come to the same conclusions I did about, what the customer needs at this, and they can go listen to phone calls. They can, watch technicians do their work. If you have, those types of things, how are you capable of creating value without micromanaging people, is really a lesson for any executive. The other thing I wrote down was, workers, if they're working to principle and not dictates and processes and procedures and rules and scripts and things of that sort, they may generate their own processes and rules and things of that sort on their own. But when they do that, they understand why they're doing it. If you just say, okay, here's this, employee handbook, and here's all the procedures that we do, now go for it, type of thing, then people are not going to buy into it. They have to be the ones making the decisions about what types of procedures and scripts and rules. And I've run into a few organizations that will say, well, I just don't have time for that. It's easier for me to just dictate things out. It might be, but you're going to have turnover. You're going to have, all the bad things that come with having kind of a micromanaged organization, and especially one that dictates decisions from, the hierarchy that's out there. So you get that high turnover, you get that demotivation, you get, it's not a fun place to work. And if you have dictates, there's always going to be gray areas. And if you're not working to principles, then those gray areas, then, people are going to hopefully make whatever the right decision is in the manager's mind, as opposed to what's right for the customer. And so you develop, in my system, you develop the customer creed, which I talked about last week too. But developing the certain things that are important to customers, they become principles to your work, are part of a broader system of principles that you're working to within the organization. Now, some people in the organization say, well, we used to work to purpose, that way. Well, yeah, these are kind of the components of that. But you're doing it from knowledge and not such a big picture type of thing that's very difficult for some people to grasp when they're, okay, I'm doing something very specific and you're talking about purpose. There's a there's a gap in there, and I believe that both the customer creed and developing principles, out of that becomes a much better way to move things forward. So anyway, that's what I wanted to cover this week. And remember, there is always a better way.